In the cold and unforgiving expanse of space, an invisible tension grew between two powers, both aware of each other, both deeply suspicious, and now on the verge of open conflict. The Galactic Coalition, a union of the most formidable alien species ever known, had grown restless. For centuries, they had ruled the galaxy unopposed, dictating the future of countless planets and star systems. But then came the humans. Humanity had been, for most of their existence, a minor annoyance to the galaxy's elites. A fledgling race that had barely left the confines of their home planet, Earth. They were often dismissed as insignificant. However, over the last century, that perception had begun to change. Earth's technological leaps, their tenacity, and their ability to adapt in the face of seemingly insurmountable odds had caught the attention of more powerful forces. It was King Zyak of the Vorith Empire who had grown particularly irritated. The Vorith, one of the oldest and most influential members of the Galactic Coalition, prided themselves on their power. They had conquered entire star systems, enslaved lesser species, and shaped the galaxy in their image. Zyak had been at the center of these conquests, reigning for over 200 years, his empire expanding in every direction. However, the humans' recent expansion into the outer territories threatened to destabilize the Coalition's grip on those regions. From the capital planet of Vorith Prime, King Zyak stood on the observation deck of his massive warship, the Maelstrom, gazing out at the swirling nebulae that stretched across the stars. His violet eyes gleamed with disdain as he considered the humans. To him, they were nothing more than vermin, a pest that had grown too bold. Their continued presence in what he considered Coalition space was unacceptable. At his side, General Thrace, a hardened Vorith warrior who had led countless campaigns, awaited the king's command. The general, tall and imposing with dark green skin and an array of battle scars that crisscrossed his muscular form, had always been loyal to Zyak's ambitions. Today, however, he could sense something different, a simmering rage in his ruler's posture. "They've crossed the line, haven't they, Your Majesty?" Thrace asked, his voice deep and gravelly. Zyak turned slowly, his ornate robes brushing the polished floor, his face twisted in a sneer. "The humans, they dare challenge our sovereignty. They have forgotten their place, General. It is time we remind them." He flicked his hand toward the large holographic display that hovered above the war room table. The planets of the outer territories, now claimed by the humans, shimmered in an angry red hue. There were 7 in total, each marked with Earth's emblem, a blue globe with wings, a symbol of their recent interstellar expansion. Zyak's lips curled into a snarl at the sight. "They are but ants in our empire," the king hissed. "And yet, they continue to multiply, to spread like a disease. This expansion of theirs, it will end." General Thrace nodded in agreement. "Shall I mobilize the fleet, my king? We can eliminate them before they have a chance to respond." Zyak shook his head, a twisted smile forming on his thin lips. "No, not yet. We shall give them one final chance to bow, one last opportunity to submit, and when they inevitably refuse, we will crush them in front of the entire galaxy." Thrace's eyes gleamed with dark excitement. He had served under Zyak for decades and had witnessed the destruction of countless civilizations, but there was something uniquely satisfying about the prospect of obliterating these upstart humans. "Shall I prepare the message?" "Yes," Zyak said, his voice low and dangerous. "Make sure it reaches every corner of their pitiful planet. Let all of humanity know what's coming for them." Across the galaxy, light years away on Earth, President Alaric Kane sat in the Grand Chamber of the Earth Council, surrounded by the planet's highest-ranking officials. The tension in the room was palpable as the message from the Vorith Empire played on the large screen before them. Zyak's face appeared, his sharp features illuminated by the dim light of the holographic transmission. His voice was cold, dripping with condescension as he spoke directly to the humans. "You have overstepped your boundaries, Earthlings," Zyak declared. "Your expansion into territories that belong to the Galactic Coalition is a violation we cannot ignore. You have 2 options. Withdraw from these colonies immediately and return to the confines of your own star system, or face annihilation." The message ended abruptly, leaving a chilling silence in the council chamber. Alaric Kane, a man in his mid-50s with a strong jawline and a piercing gaze, sat back in his chair, his fingers steepled under his chin. His dark hair, streaked with silver, was neatly combed back, but there was a quiet intensity in his eyes as he studied the faces of his fellow council members. "They're bluffing," one of the counselors said, breaking the silence. "The coalition wouldn't risk open war over a few colonies. We should call their bluff and continue our expansion." Another counselor shook his head, his face pale. "This is King Xylarak we're talking about. He's not known for making empty threats. If we don't pull back, he'll unleash the full might of the Vorith on us. We can't fight them." Kane remained silent, his mind racing as the counselors bickered. He had known this moment would come eventually. Humanity's rapid expansion into space had been met with growing hostility from the coalition, but retreating now would mean giving up everything they had worked for. It would mean admitting that humanity was still the weak, insignificant species the rest of the galaxy believed them to be. He couldn't allow that. "We won't retreat," Kane said finally, his voice firm and resolute. The room fell silent as all eyes turned to him. "We've come too far to back down now. If we give in to their demands, it'll only embolden them. They'll see us as weak, and they'll keep pushing until there's nothing left." "But, Mr. President," one of the counselors protested, "we can't possibly stand up to the Vorith Empire. Their fleets outnumber ours 10-1. We don't stand a chance." Kane stood up from his seat, his gaze sweeping across the room. "We may not have the numbers or the technology they do, but we have something they don't. We have the will to fight. We've faced extinction before, and we survived. We won't roll over and die just because some alien tyrant demands it." The counselors exchanged uneasy glances, but there was a flicker of hope in their eyes. Kane's words resonated with them, reminding them of humanity's resilience in the face of adversity. General Elena Varga, the commander of Earth's military forces, spoke up. "If we're going to resist, we'll need to mobilize everything we have. Our fleets, our ground forces, our intelligence networks. We'll need to prepare for a war like we've never seen before." Kane nodded. "Agreed. We'll fight them with everything we've got. But we won't just fight to survive. We'll fight to win." As the council began to discuss their strategy, Kane stepped away from the table, his mind still focused on the looming threat of Xylarak and his empire. He knew the odds were stacked against them, but humanity had always thrived in the face of impossible odds. This time would be no different. Meanwhile, in the dark recesses of the galaxy, Xylarak watched the humans' response with growing anger. His scouts had intercepted Earth's transmission. Kane's defiant words echoed in his mind. The humans had chosen war. A predatory smile spread across Xylarak's face. "So be it," he whispered. "I will enjoy breaking them." With a single command, the full might of the Vorith Empire's war machine began to move. Fleet after fleet, armed with the most advanced weaponry in the galaxy, surged toward Earth's colonies. The humans had made their choice. Now, they would face the consequences. Chapter 2. The First Blow. The galaxy stirred with anticipation. The Vorith fleet, an armada that spanned dozens of light years, was now mobilized and barreling toward the human colonies with the speed and fury of a cosmic storm. The humans had made their choice defiance, and now they would face the consequences of that choice. For King Xylarak, this was no longer a simple territorial dispute. This was about pride, power, and showing the galaxy that no species, not even the upstart humans, could challenge the Galactic Coalition and live to tell the tale. The command deck of the Maelstrom, the flagship of the Vorith fleet, was a scene of calculated chaos. Officers and tactical experts hurried about, relaying orders and monitoring the progress of the fleet. King Xylarak sat in his throne-like command chair at the center of it all, his eyes fixed on the glowing holographic display that showed the human colonies ahead. The cold, blue light reflected in his violet eyes as his lips twisted into a sinister grin. "They think they can resist us," Xylarak mused aloud, his voice dripping with disdain. "Pathetic." At his side, General Thrace stood at attention, his imposing form casting a long shadow across the deck. His dark green skin gleamed under the dim lights of the bridge, his battle-hardened face a mask of stoic determination. "The humans are more stubborn than we anticipated, Your Majesty, but their defiance will not last long. Our forces will crush them." Xylarak nodded, his fingers drumming lightly on the arm of his chair. "Yes, and we will make an example of them. I want their cities to burn. I want their people to see what happens to those who challenge the might of the Vorith." A sudden chime interrupted his thoughts, and the image of a Vorith officer appeared on a nearby communication terminal. "Your Majesty, we have reached the first human colony, Striker 9. The fleet is in position. Xylarak leaned forward slightly, his eyes narrowing. Begin the attack. Show no mercy. Striker 9, one of humanity's outermost colonies, was a planet of strategic importance, though relatively young and sparsely populated. Its main city, Novum, was a hub for scientific research and resource extraction, with its towering buildings and sprawling complexes a testament to humanity's growing presence in the stars. For the past few days, there had been whispers of war, rumors circulating among the colonists that the Vorith were coming. But most had dismissed these fears, believing that Earth would find a way to negotiate a peaceful resolution. They were wrong. The Vorith attack came without warning, a barrage of plasma missiles and energy blasts that tore through the colony's defenses like paper. The sky above Novum lit up in a violent cascade of explosions, the once serene blue atmosphere now a hellish red as Vorith warships descended from the heavens. Buildings crumbled, ships exploded in mid-air, and the ground shook with the force of the bombardment. Colonel Rebecca Drake, the ranking officer in charge of Striker 9's defense forces, stood in the control center of the colony's main military base, her heart pounding in her chest as the holographic display in front of her lit up with warnings and alerts. She had known this day might come, but the sheer scale of the Vorith assault took her breath away. "We're being hit on all fronts," one of her officers shouted over the din of alarms. "Shields are down to 20%, and the outer perimeter has been breached." Drake clenched her fists, her mind racing. The Vorith weren't just attacking, they were overwhelming the colony's defenses with ruthless efficiency. The human garrison, while equipped with advanced weaponry, was no match for the sheer firepower of the Vorith fleet. But surrender wasn't an option. Not now. Not ever. "Evacuate the civilians to the underground shelters," Drake ordered, her voice steady despite the chaos around her. "And get me a direct line to Earth. They need to know what's happening here." As her officers scrambled to carry out her orders, the ground beneath the base rumbled, followed by a deafening explosion that sent shockwaves through the complex. Drake staggered, grabbing onto a nearby console for support as the lights flickered and dimmed. "They've breached the outer wall," someone yelled. "Vorith ground troops are advancing." Drake's heart sank. If the Vorith had landed troops, it meant they weren't just here to destroy, they were here to conquer. She gritted her teeth and turned to the tactical officer monitoring the battlefield. "What's our status on the ground?" The officer's face was pale as he scanned the incoming data. "Vorith forces are advancing from the north and west, closing in on the city. Our troops are falling back to defensive positions, but they're being overrun." Drake cursed under her breath. "Send reinforcements to the northern sector. We can't let them take the city." Outside, the battle raged on. Human soldiers, clad in adaptive exosuits that enhanced their strength and reflexes, fought valiantly against the Vorith invaders. Plasma rifles and kinetic cannons roared as the two forces clashed, but the Vorith were relentless. Their warriors, towering and heavily armored, marched forward with ruthless precision, their advanced weaponry cutting through human ranks like a scythe through wheat. Amidst the chaos, Captain Aaron Valdez, one of the colony's most skilled combat engineers, led a squad of soldiers in a desperate attempt to hold the northern gate. His exosuit's heads-up display flashed with warnings as he fired his plasma rifle at the advancing Vorith soldiers. The air was thick with the acrid smell of burning metal and scorched earth, and the ground beneath his feet shook with the impact of explosions. "We're not going to be able to hold them back much longer," Valdez shouted into his comm, ducking behind a piece of debris as a plasma blast sizzled past him. "Just buy us more time," came Drake's voice over the channel. "We're sending reinforcements your way." Valdez gritted his teeth as he peeked out from behind his cover. In the distance, he could see the Vorith war machines' massive, multi-legged walkers bristling with weapons advancing toward their position. He knew they didn't have much time. If those walkers reached the city, it would be over. He turned to his squad, his voice hoarse from shouting over the sounds of battle. "We're going to take out those walkers. If they get any closer, we're done for." His soldiers nodded grimly, their faces smeared with dirt and sweat. They were outnumbered, outgunned, but they were human, and they weren't about to give up without a fight. Valdez activated the missile launcher mounted on his exosuit's shoulder and aimed it at the nearest walker. Locking target and firing. The missile streaked through the air, leaving a trail of smoke in its wake, before slamming into the walker's leg. The explosion rocked the massive machine, sending it stumbling to the side. For a moment, it seemed like the tide might turn in their favor. But the Vorith were prepared. Before Valdez could fire a second shot, a volley of plasma fire rained down on their position, engulfing his squad in a blinding wave of heat and light. He barely had time to register the pain before everything went dark. In the control center, Drake's heart sank as the comlink with Valdez's squad went dead. The battle was turning into a massacre. The Vorith were pushing deeper into the city, and there was nothing she could do to stop them. A voice crackled over the comm. "Colonel Drake, this is President Kane. We've received your distress signal. Reinforcements are on the way, but it'll take time for them to reach you. Hold the line as long as you can." Drake swallowed hard. Reinforcements? It wouldn't matter. By the time they arrived, Stryker 9 would be ashes. But she couldn't abandon the colony. She couldn't abandon her people. "We'll hold, Mr. President," she said, her voice steady. "We'll hold." As she cut the comm, Drake turned back to the tactical display. The Vorith forces were closing in on the command center. The end was near. But even as the city burned around her, Colonel Rebecca Drake knew one thing for certain. Humanity would not go down without a fight. Chapter 3. The Fall of the Vorith. The battles that raged across the outer human colonies were just the beginning. Despite their initial losses, Earth's forces regrouped with a ferocity that shocked even the Vorith. News of Stryker 9's destruction had sent waves of fury through humanity's core worlds, and President Kane had activated the Earth Defense Force in its entirety. What the Coalition had miscalculated, however, was not just human tenacity, but the extent of human ingenuity. The Vorith, and by extension the Galactic Coalition, had long prided themselves on technological superiority, using advanced plasma weaponry and large, cumbersome warships that projected fear. Yet, in their arrogance, they had failed to understand that humanity's biggest strength lay in adaptation. Unlike many galactic species who had grown stagnant, relying on ancient technologies, humans evolved quickly. They learned from every defeat, their strategies and weapons shifting as swiftly as their enemies' attacks. The Coalition, and especially King Xylarak, saw the initial successes against human colonies as confirmation of their supremacy. But as weeks passed and the Vorith fleets continued their relentless march, something strange began to happen. The humans stopped retreating. They stopped running. Instead, they started to push back. On the Vorith warship Maelstrom, King Xylarak sat in his command chair, his cold violet eyes scanning the latest reports from the front lines. His fleet had decimated several human colonies, but it had come at a cost. More Vorith warships had been destroyed than he had anticipated. The human counterattacks were becoming more frequent, more coordinated, and more devastating. Something had changed, and it unsettled him. "How are they managing to resist us?" Xylarak growled, slamming his fist onto the arm of his chair. "Their technology is inferior. Their ships are weak, and yet, they fight like cornered beasts." General Thrace, standing beside the king, wore a deep frown as he studied the tactical hologram floating above the war table. "The humans have proven resourceful," he admitted. "They are adapting to our strategies faster than anticipated. We underestimated their capacity to innovate under pressure." Xylarak's anger flared. "Innovation? They're nothing but pests. We should have crushed them by now." Thrace glanced at the display, noting the increased reports of Vorith losses. "It is possible the humans have allies we are unaware of. Their technology seems to be evolving too quickly." "Impossible," Xylarak spat. "No species would dare ally with these apes. This is their doing alone. But it will not matter. Prepare the final wave. We will strike Earth directly, crush their home, and the rest will fall." Thrace hesitated for a moment. "Your Majesty, attacking Earth directly. It will provoke a more desperate response. The humans may resort to more extreme measures." Xylarak's eyes gleamed with cold malice. "Let them. Desperation will only make their defeat all the sweeter." Earth's hidden arsenal. As the Vorith fleet prepared for its final assault, Earth's hidden strengths began to reveal themselves. What King Xylarak and the Coalition did not realize was that humanity had been preparing for this moment for decades. The destruction of Earth in any traditional sense was all but impossible now. Over the years, Earth's military leaders had quietly constructed a defense system so advanced, so concealed, that even the most sophisticated galactic sensors couldn't detect it. Beneath the surface of Earth, and in the asteroid belts near Mars lay an arsenal of weaponry that dwarfed anything the Vorith could have imagined. Directed energy weapons, automated defense systems, and fleets of stealth warships equipped with next-generation quantum cloaking technology had been secretly developed in anticipation of a galactic conflict. Humanity had known that sooner or later, the coalition would see them as a threat. President Kane stood in the underground command center deep beneath the Rockies, watching as the Vorith fleet drew closer to Earth's borders. Around him, Earth's most brilliant minds and military leaders worked in coordinated precision, preparing for the final stage of their defense. They had held back the majority of their forces during the early battles, allowing the Vorith to think that humanity was on the verge of defeat. But now it was time to strike back. General Elena Varga, standing beside Kane, spoke with quiet determination. The Vorith fleet is positioning itself for a direct assault. They've concentrated their forces on the outer perimeter of the solar system. They think they have us pinned. Kane's steely gaze was fixed on the tactical display in front of him, where the Vorith warships were marked in red. Good, he said, his voice cold. Let them think that. How long until they're in range? 36 hours, give or take, Varga replied. But they're being cautious. They know we have defenses, but they have no idea what we've been hiding. Kane smiled darkly. They'll know soon enough. Begin Operation Dawnstrike. Varga nodded, her fingers flying across the control panel as she relayed the orders. Across the solar system, hidden human warships began to power up, their engines humming to life as they emerged from their cloaked positions. Stealth drones and defense platforms, long dormant and concealed within asteroid fields, aligned themselves for the coming battle. But the centerpiece of humanity's counterstrike was something far more advanced, an experimental AI-driven warship known as Retribution. It had never been used in combat before, and for good reason. Its weaponry was so powerful that even a single miscalculation could wipe out entire planets. It was the product of decades of research into quantum energy manipulation, a ship capable of harnessing the very fabric of space-time itself to deliver catastrophic blows to enemy forces. As the Retribution powered up, its sleek, obsidian hull gleamed under the artificial lights of its hidden docking bay. Inside, the ship's AI, codenamed Astra, began calculating the optimal strategy for decimating the Vorith fleet. The Vorith fleet's approach. 30 hours after launching the final wave, King Xylorak's fleet approached the edge of the solar system. The Vorith king stood in the observation deck of the Maelstrom, gazing at the distant blue dot of Earth, now visible on the horizon. His heart surged with anticipation. This was the moment he had been waiting for, the moment he would bring humanity to its knees and solidify his place as the most feared ruler in the galaxy. Once we breach their outer defenses, Earth will fall in a matter of hours, General Thrace said, standing beside Xylorak. Our forces are fully prepared for planetary bombardment. Xylorak nodded, his lips curling into a smug grin. Good. Let this be the day that all species in the galaxy learn to fear the name Vorith. But as the fleet inched closer to Earth, something strange began to happen. The ship's sensors started picking up unusual readings, unidentifiable energy signatures that seemed to be emanating from the asteroid belt near Mars. Sir, one of the tactical officers called out, his voice laced with confusion. We're detecting massive energy surges from the asteroid field. It doesn't match any known human technology. Thrace frowned. What is it? Some kind of defense platform? The officer shook his head. It's unlike anything we've ever seen. I can't pinpoint the source, but dash? Before he could finish, the ship's sensors erupted in a frenzy of alarms. The Maelstrom shook violently as an unseen force struck the fleet. Ships in the outer perimeter were torn apart in an instant, their hulls disintegrating as if they had been hit by an invisible tidal wave. The Vorith warships scrambled to respond, but the attacks came from everywhere and nowhere at once. What's happening? Xylorak shouted, gripping the armrest of his chair. A massive explosion lit up the tactical display, followed by another and another. One by one, Vorith ships were being annihilated by an unseen enemy. The humans had unleashed their hidden arsenal. They're using quantum weapons. Thrace exclaimed, his eyes wide with disbelief. Impossible. No one has developed that kind of technology. Xylorak's face twisted in rage. The humans, those damn apes. They've been hiding this from us all along. As panic spread across the Vorith fleet, the Retribution appeared out of the void, its sleek form shimmering as it uncloaked. The ship's AI, Astra, locked onto the Maelstrom, calculating the optimal strike point. For the first time in his long reign, King Xylorak felt a chill of fear run down his spine. On Earth, President Kane watched as the Vorith fleet began to disintegrate under the relentless onslaught of humanity's hidden forces. A sense of grim satisfaction washed over him. They had baited the Vorith into overconfidence, and now they would pay the price. "Prepare the final strike," Kane ordered, his voice calm. "It's time to end this." As the Retribution powered up for its final assault on the Maelstrom, Earth's forces began to tighten the noose around the remnants of the Vorith fleet. This was no longer a battle. It was a slaughter. King Xylarak's reign of terror was about to come to a brutal and very public end. Chapter 4. The Humbling of the Vorith King. The once invincible Vorith fleet was in tatters. Debris from the destroyed warships drifted through space, the wreckage of what was supposed to be the Coalition's final blow against humanity. And yet, instead of kneeling before the might of the Vorith Empire, humanity had turned the tables. They had outmaneuvered their technologically superior foes, revealing the truth of their hidden preparations, and now, it was the Vorith who found themselves on the brink of ruin. King Xylarak watched in stunned silence from the command bridge of the Maelstrom. The destruction was beyond comprehension. He had never witnessed his mighty, unbeatable fleet fall so quickly, so completely. The humans had lured them into a trap, using their own arrogance against them. And now the Vorith were paying the price for their hubris. On the holographic tactical display in front of him, the Retribution loomed large, its sleek black hull glowing with the power of untapped quantum energy. Its presence alone sent chills down Xylarak's spine, and though he was a king who had ruled for centuries, he could feel fear creeping into his heart. "Sir, we're receiving a transmission," said one of his tactical officers, his voice shaking. "It's from Earth." Xylarak clenched his fists, his knuckles whitening. "Put it through." The image of President Alaric Kane appeared before him, standing in the underground war room far below the surface of Earth. His face was calm, resolute, but his eyes gleamed with the knowledge that the tide of war had shifted irrevocably in humanity's favor. "King Xylarak," Kane said, his voice cold and precise, "I gave you the chance to retreat. I gave you the opportunity to avoid this war. You chose to attack, to murder innocent civilians, to try and wipe us out." Xylarak's lips curled into a snarl. "You're nothing but vermin, Kane. Humanity should have been crushed long ago. You're a stain on the galaxy, and I will not dash." "You will not what?" Kane interrupted, his voice sharp. "You will not win this war. You're finished, Xylarak. Your empire is crumbling around you. Your fleet is destroyed, and your people will soon rise up against you. The Coalition's grip on this galaxy is loosening, and it will fall just like your empire." Xylarak's violet eyes blazed with fury, but deep down, he knew Kane was right. His empire had stretched itself thin, conquering and subjugating planets for centuries, and now, with the loss of his fleet, the foundation of his power was crumbling. The Vorith homeworld, once a beacon of fear and dominance, was now vulnerable. But Xylarak was not ready to admit defeat. "You may have won this battle, human, but I am a king. I will not bow to the likes of you." Kane's eyes narrowed. "You'll do more than bow. You'll fall." With a quick motion, Kane gestured to the nearby tactical officer. "Execute Operation Thunderstrike." On the battlefield, as Earth's forces closed in on the remnants of the Vorith fleet, a specialized strike team was already en route to the Maelstrom, their mission clear. Capture King Xylarak and bring him to Earth, alive. The team, led by Major John Vargas, was composed of elite soldiers from Earth's Special Operations Division. Clad in stealth armor and equipped with advanced weaponry designed to neutralize even the most heavily defended targets, they approached the Maelstrom aboard a cloaked transport ship, undetected by the Vorith defenses. Inside the transport, Vargas checked his weapons one last time, his dark eyes focused and determined. This was the mission of a lifetime. They were about to strike at the heart of the Vorith Empire, and if they succeeded, the war would be over. Humanity would not only survive, they would emerge victorious. "Team, listen up," Vargas said, addressing his squad. "We go in fast and quiet. Our primary objective is to secure the target, King Xylarak. Secondary objective is to disable the ship's main command systems and ensure the Vorith fleet can't regroup. We're not here to negotiate. We're here to end this." The soldiers nodded, their faces hidden behind the visors of their helmets, but their determination was palpable. They had trained for this moment for years, preparing for a day when they would strike back against the galaxy's oppressors. Today was that day. As the transport approached the docking bay of the Maelstrom, the ship uncloaked for a brief moment, just long enough to land. The bay was eerily quiet. Most of the Vorith crew were focused on the larger battle outside, unaware of the human strike team that had just boarded their ship. Vargas led his team through the narrow corridors of the Vorith warship, moving with precision and speed. The Maelstrom was a labyrinth of metal and machinery, but they had studied its layout for months, preparing for this exact moment. Their objective, the command bridge, where Xylarak would be waiting. As they approached the central chamber, Vargas signaled for his team to stop. "We're close," he whispered. "Prepare for breach." The soldiers readied their weapons, and with a quick nod, Vargas activated the breaching charge on the door. The explosion was silent, muffled by their advanced tech, and the door slid open without a sound. Inside, King Xylarak stood at the command console, his back turned to them, barking orders at his remaining officers. He hadn't even noticed their arrival. Vargas moved swiftly, his weapon aimed directly at Xylarak's head. "King Xylarak," he said, his voice cold and commanding, "It's over. You're coming with us." The Vorith king froze, slowly turning to face his captors. For a moment, there was silence as he stared at the human soldiers standing before him. His face twisted with rage, but he knew there was no escape. His empire had fallen, and now, so had he. "You think this will end the war?" Xylarak hissed, his voice filled with venom. "You think capturing me will stop the coalition?" Vargas's gaze was steady. "We've already won. Your people will revolt when they see their king defeated. The coalition is finished." Xylarak snarled, but he knew the truth. His reign of terror had come to an end. The humans had outsmarted him, and now, he would pay the price. With a swift motion, Vargas and his team restrained Xylarak and secured him for transport. The Vorith officers in the room dared not intervene, their loyalty to the king already eroding in the face of overwhelming defeat. As the strike team made their way back to the transport, Xylarak remained silent, his mind racing with thoughts of revenge and bitterness. But deep down, he knew that this was the end. Earth, the fall of a tyrant. The image of King Xylarak being dragged through the streets of Earth's capital was broadcast to the entire galaxy. Shackled, beaten, and humiliated, the once feared ruler of the Vorith Empire was paraded before billions as a symbol of humanity's victory. The streets were lined with cheering crowds, their voices rising in a cacophony of celebration. The tyrant who had once terrorized the galaxy was now nothing more than a defeated prisoner, stripped of his power and dignity. President Kane watched the broadcast from the command center, his expression grim. This wasn't about gloating. It was about sending a message to the galaxy, a message that humanity would not be bullied, would not be conquered. The coalition had been dealt a crippling blow, and Earth had proven that they were a force to be reckoned with. "We did it," General Vargas said, standing beside Kane. "The galaxy will think twice before coming after us again." Kane nodded, but there was no joy in his eyes. "It's not over yet. The Vorith Empire may have fallen, but there will always be those who seek to take what we've built. We must remain vigilant." Vargas smiled slightly. "That's what we do best." As the broadcast continued, showing Xylarak being led into a high-security prison, Kane knew that this was only the beginning. Humanity had won the war, but their place in the galaxy was still fragile. They would need to be stronger, smarter, and more united than ever before. But for now, at least they had won. And King Xylarak, the tyrant who had demanded war, had been ruthlessly dragged through the streets in defeat.